Bulivanaka, I'm Jackie Whippy and welcome to Coffee Break. I hope you are ready for another episode of Coffee Break because tonight I will be talking about the exciting men dancing production, suicide in Fiji and the latest on Fiji Touch Rugby. Tonight we will be touching on a sensitive issue that needs addressing, suicide. Not the methods of the act but on the processes of the idea when it's first planted into your mind. If you don't know what suicide ideation is, then stay tuned because with me tonight is psychologist Selina Kuruleva, who is a member of the National Committee on Prevention of Suicide and also a member of the National Advisory Council on Mental Health. Good evening, Selina, and thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Jackie, for having me tonight.
Okay. Well, the topic is suicide, but I wanted to ask, what is suicide ideation?
Suicide ideation is actually a medical term that is used to describe when people have obsessive thoughts of dying or wanting to die and not wanting to live anymore. I guess the layman's term, or the term that you and I would use most frequently, is the idea of dying. Someone is feeling suicidal. That's when we talk about suicidal ideation. Okay. In the world of mental health and psychiatry and psychology, when we talk about suicide ideation, we're talking about using different scales to measure a person's thought process of where they are in terms of just a random thought, or is it frequently occurring, how often in the last 2 days, 4 days, 5 days. It's a very systematic way of getting or assessing someone in terms of where they're up to if someone is thinking about suicide. When we talk about suicide ideation, we're also referring to, we need to talk about it in relation to three things, which are psychiatric disorders, family events, or family history and life events. When I say they coexist, or they usually comorbid existence, meaning that when you're talking about suicide, you should not just focus on because A happened, it's a cause and effect. It's never a cause and effect. There are a lot of factors that come into play. Yeah.
Okay, like a ripple effect? Like that?
Yeah, usually someone would, the research and the studies that have been coming out over time, someone may be thinking suicidal thoughts and something may have happened in their family, so family history, or there's a life event. When we talk about life event, big occasions that happen that could affect someone's mental health status, as well as psychiatric disorders that plays a role in terms of some particular disorders or mental illnesses to have a direct link with someone feeling suicidal. So that's how you need to talk about it. So people don't think just because someone is having a one-off suicide thought, then that's it. Does that mean that we stop caring about people who might just have, feeling bad today? No, you need to be paying attention to all of them.
Because everything matters.
Yeah, everything matters. Exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
But suicide is always an issue that doesn't, people don't like to address.
I don't think it's because people don't like to address it, but it's difficult to address because, like you rightly pointed out, it's very sensitive. How do we do it? How do we actually know that someone might, is thinking of suicide or actually attempt suicide? So people are, I guess, it's difficult for a lot of people. For families where they have survived a suicide, so there is someone who has attempted a suicide, they're within that family, there's the associated stigma. People, look around and that family is this and that. And Suva or Fiji being a very small place, it is unfortunate that we still have a lot of that stigma around. There's a lot of NGOs that do very important work in terms of suicide prevention and awareness, the Ministry of Health, now the Fiji Police. So a lot of people are now coming on board to try and raise or have more awareness campaigns, education, going into the schools, just talking to people about the importance of making the observation, the signs and symptoms. And
so that's going on. That's going on right now.
That's what's going on right now on the week of August the 5th to the 9th. That week and the week after, the youth champs for mental health. They're an NGO of young people. born out of the National Committee on the Prevention of Suicide and the National Suicide Prevention Policy. They will be going into select primary and secondary schools in the greater Suva area, only because it's easier. They're all located in Suva.
And how is the response going with families? I mean, are they okay with that, or?
Absolutely. I mean, people were asking for this intervention to come because, as you're all, I'm sure a lot of people are aware, that the types of difficulties and problems that our young people, our children are facing these days are not the same problems that you and I had. Not with that all, but you understand what I'm saying. So there's been an increase in people needing to be more aware. The statistics that we have, and the official statistics from the Fiji Police Force, indicate to us that this is a huge problem in Fiji, and we really need to take action to ensure that, this unnecessary deaths.
But what have you seen with the trend? Because I saw the stats that you emailed over, and there's an increase from 2011, 12, and even to date.
Yes, 2011 we had attempted suicides of 109. Completed suicide was 48. That's a total of 157. In 2012, we had attempted suicides 144, suicides 124, and completed 268. That's for the whole year, right? Yet, in 2013, as of 29th July, attempted suicides in our country is 92. Completed suicide is 72. That's alarming, and that brings us. I mean, we're halfway through the year, and we're just 100 short of the whole year for last year. So there is a need for more prevention awareness campaigns. There is.
So is that why that you have this youth group that's going into the schools now?
That's part of it. The youth group actually are going into the schools for suicide prevention, as well as in preparation for National Mental Health Month, which is October, and that's celebrated the world over. Another reason why they're going into the schools is because we have World Suicide Prevention Day, which is commemorated on the September 10th of each year. So this year, the theme is stigma, a major barrier to suicide prevention. So we hope when young people are going in and talking to other people, connecting, talking to the teachers and the staff and whoever's listening, and obviously we're hoping for media coverage then as well, is that people will be able to say, okay, hang on, there is a problem. It's not so bad.
Let's address it now.
Yeah. It's not so bad that we talk about it. Just because we talk about suicide doesn't mean that someone will actually go and do something. But it's
that's really true, because a lot of people, that's the reason why they don't want to talk about it, because they think that it's going to happen.
I can't plant the idea in the people. True. That's not all true. There's a whole range of factors that we need to think about and needs to come into play when we're talking about suicide prevention.
Okay. So why is it only a selected number of schools?
There needs to be funding.
Okay.
So it's directly related to funding at this stage, and of course there's not enough trained personnel, so the importance of training people up, capacity building in the NGOs, in the different government departments on signs and symptoms of suicide, in terms of treatment plans or interventions, whether you're in the Public Service Commission, whether you're in the welfare department. People need to have training so that they can pick this up and then channel the person who needs assistance to the right place. So that's another reason why we have to start now, start somewhere and do it properly. I think one of the mistakes that we often have is that we want to do everything and be everything. We can't do that. When we're talking about suicide, we need to be very clear that we're talking about a very difficult issue, because of the pain and suffering that people go through because of the suicide attempt or the completed suicide. So you need always to think about that when you're going into these spaces. Selected schools, because the team going, if students come up to them and want support, we need to be able to offer that support. You can't just go and talk about it and walk away and don't offer support.
What about addressing the parents? I mean, the schools, the kids, that's great. But I mean, usually the parents are the ones that,
Yeah, the
should be
parents.
offering the
Because
support.
the parents are the ones who usually spend the most time with the children, but most of that time is sleeping time. A student or a young person in school spends most waking hours with the teacher, not with the parent.
Okay.
The parent is maybe 1 hour in the morning when they're getting ready for school, and after school, the parent comes home maybe 5, 6, depending on what their social engagements are. So
Just a couple of hours
parent-child
and then-
awake hours probably what, 3, 4 hours max, but 8 hours straight. It's the teacher. So teachers also need to be supported because they have their own things going on with their families, and here they are, they're having to deal with young people, children, students from different developmental ages. So that's another factor that we need to consider in terms of the messages of suicide prevention that we take to these different groups of people.
Wouldn't it be a little bit stressful for the teacher though? Because I mean, they have like 45 students.
Oh,
and so
absolutely,
they'll
yeah.
have to treat them like the children.
And you know, that's what teachers are doing anyway. But are we supporting the teachers? So, you know, the teachers need to be ably supported. Not that we expect the teachers all to be doing counseling, but the teacher needs to be able, at the very minimum, identify some of the signs and symptoms and refer appropriately to an agency or a government department, whether it's Ministry of Health or Fiji Police or Welfare, who can then put in the appropriate interventions and treatment for the person who might need the help. Yeah.
Okay. There was a report that you had done with 2 other lecturers in 2005, am I correct?
Yeah.
And you were saying that there was going to be a trend, an increase in suicide. Do you think that's going to keep happening?
That's a global trend, and as well as a trend here in Fiji. The paper we wrote back in 2005 was based on anecdotal evidence that we've been gathering and information, and fortunately for us, now we have very good statistics coming out of the Fiji Police Force. So it's not good that the trend has come true, but you know, we are seeing the predictions of what the trend would be. And it's been consistent, so that's a concern because...
What was the main area of concern?
The main area of concern is that these are people in the prime of their life. If you look at the statistics, the biggest age group of completed suicide is for people 26 and above. These are people who would be starting their careers, or starting their family, finding a new job somewhere, transiting between jobs. So these are people who are just trying to establish themselves in the world, but the stresses, whatever they are, mental illness, stresses, family events, life events, all this combined, and they are unable to cope with it. Either they choose not to cope with it, or they are not able to find appropriate coping mechanisms. So these are the people, and the trend that we identified back then is that these are the people who will continue to attempt suicide or complete suicides. And in Fiji, the trend is again consistent with global trends, more males than females. The predominant ethnic group here in Fiji, another politically correct term is the Fijians, or formerly the Indo-Fijians. The Itoke, we're not too far behind. And this is again something that if we don't put in appropriate prevention methods now, messages, get the word out there that we need to work together. This needs to be a whole community approach. Everyone has a role to play, starting with the parents at home. That you need to see what you can do for your children, make the observations when they start isolating themselves, behavior changes that they may display. The churches or the temples, all religious groups have a place to in the suicide prevention message. It's unfortunate that most of the time when we talk about suicide in this country, we think right away, oh, I must be going to St. Giles.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, and that's an error that we make, because it's not only about the people who go to St. Giles, it's about anyone in the community who's has incredible emotional pain, and they think that there is no other way to deal with it. And that's what suicide is about. It's about all the other factors that come into play, and people don't know how to deal with it. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. We've just run out of time.
Okay.
But just wanted to ask you if there was anything that you'd like to share with viewers at home. on, you know, just some advice?
Life is for living, that no matter how difficult, how big a problem is, an issue, there will always be someone to help you. There is a directory that has now become available for mental health services in this country. If you go to your teachers, you can go to your local police, the local hospitals, health centers, someone will be there to help you. But you know, life is for living. As difficult as it may become, as long as you are breathing, there is hope that your life can change.
Thank you, Selena. And for those of you watching at home, if you have any questions or queries, you know who to contact. Anyway, what does it take to be an artist? Find out more after the break. Welcome back. What does it mean to be an artist? For our guest, it's a lifelong journey of creative expression through dance. Peter Espiritu, who is the artistic director of the Oceania Dance Theatre at USP, and who is also the founder, choreographer, and artistic director of Tao Dance Theatre, a dance company in Hawaii that combines ballet, modern dance, hula, and Pacific Island traditions into something completely original. Our conversation gives us a glimpse into the creative process of this Hawaiian artist. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, Jackie. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So tell me, I watched your show, Men Dancing production, right? On Saturday. Oh my gosh, and it was really exciting. So how did you come up with the concept?
This concept of men dancing actually was something that I had already kind of chewed on, and I just thought it was time. I'm getting to be
here.
Yeah, I've been here in Fiji for now just about 2 years, and I thought it was time to. Last year we kind of focused on women and children, and that was a good thing. And I just thought I think this year I want to focus on the men and the positive messages that they have to say. And a lot of times there's a stigmatism of dance and men.
Yes, especially in our culture.
In a lot of cultures. My mom's Samoan and my father's Hawaiian, and it was always the same. Pacific Islanders or just cultures in general. But that stigmatism didn't come until the contact. Then things changed, because if you think about it, dance was part of ceremony, it was part of celebration, it was part of war, it was part of about many things, telling stories. It was part of our oral tradition, and many times that oral tradition, that dissemination of information came from the men. But now, when things changed, there's contact, it changed, and I wanted to revisit that as an indigenous person, as a male Polynesian who I believe contributes to the global village. I thought it was I needed to do this, I needed to visit this, and maybe have Fiji be part of that dialogue.
Okay. Well, I saw the show. Is it the same thing as other production like Men Dancing that you've done in Hawaii?
Yeah,
or is it slightly different?
It's going to change, because no matter what the dynamics, who you bring into the mix, and how that, I like to say it organically happens. So if I see a group, like for instance the heavy metal group that's from Cunningham, Cunningham Stage 1, and they're like the bomb. I mean, they are just guys that just hit these cans and they can jam, and they're amazing. And so they bring that real raw kind of masculine energy to something that you think like marching band, but they bring a whole nother kind of funky vibe.
No, it was different, like very freestyle, eh?
Very freestyle, but at the same time, there's a genuine sense of pride. And I know they battle, and I'm glad that they actually came along for the ride, because I was worried they were like, no, I don't think so. But they did it, so I'm very proud of them.
And how long was it for? 2 weeks, you said?
We did actually 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Yeah, we actually did previews it was a 12 Pacific Science International Conference. And so we opened for that, and then we did formal shows 2 weeks after that.
And okay, so when I was at the show, it was all divided into 14 scenes. How did you come up with each different one?
Once again, it was a pretty organic thing, and I had to look at what the messages and how I was going to string, because a show no matter what, has to move you. It has to bring you up, it has to bring you down, it has to make you think. For me, you know, a lot of people think arts is entertainment. I have no problem with entertainment, but I really think that the arts has something to say.
A message.
Yeah, there should be a message, and you have to be responsible for that message. And how you I want to take you on a journey. I want to make you laugh. I want to make you cry if I can. And so it, you know, I had to see the partners and what they were saying and how they were saying it, and see how that can be put into. It's almost like doing a movie.
You went into the Bollywood dancing and then the aerial. So what was the connection throughout? I mean,
the whole connection and the thread. I wanted to start. If you look at the way it's for me, it was evolution. It started with the traditional, and I really believe that without tradition, without the culture and the foundation of where you are, you don't know who you are. So I really wanted to start with the host culture, and that's why I started with the Mecca, because I think it's beautiful. I think it really shows the primal base of where Fijians come from, and where it's not everything, but it's one part of it. And it was very important to me for the men to start with the Mecca.
Yeah, and I think that was well done, because I've never really seen a Mecca dance that was done that well.
It was
you know, a lot of pride. I mean, they weren't shaking, or they weren't really scared about, you know.
Yeah, and there was a whole bunch of them. So I have to thank Master Lai with Conservatory of Music, because he really was the one that I went to. And then I'm a real taskmaster, and I see little fine details, because I tend to look at the person that's not doing the right thing. So it's kind of a curse. At the same time, I get the job done.
Oh, no. I mean, yeah, you would expect that, because you want, you know, everything to, you know, flow.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is with cultural stuff, a lot of times maybe not so much, but I don't know. I think when you go on a stage and people pay to see something, I expect a certain level. I don't think we're doing a show in Fiji. I think we're doing a show in New York City on Broadway, or with the Paris Opera, or you know, London, and that's the standard I go for, and that's the standard I hold everyone else to.
Well, tell me, I also saw the aerial dancing. Is that what you call it?
Yes, yes.
And how did that go? I mean, like, tell me about the, you know, how long did it take for them to learn all that?
They're actually still learning. Aerial work is very specific. And actually, one of my friends, I've been in the business a long time. I was a professional ballet dancer in the 80s in New York City. And when I came back to Hawaii, I started my company, but I still was doing ballet. And Andrea, her name's Andrea Torres, she was trained at the school, Tohu, which is the School of Cirque du Soleil. So that's the ultimate school to learn aerial work. So she was trained there. I knew she had the skills, and I asked the University of South Pacific if they would allow us to learn this and bring this to the region and to the nation of Fiji. And actually it's going to catch on, because it's never been seen before or done. So they allowed it to them. I gotta give University of South Pacific credit, because they supported it, they funded it, and then because I'm American, the American Embassy also helped with outreach, allowed children to come in and watch what we've been doing, and they paid for all that free. They did like a free workshop and also a matinee so that the children could come. So she helped teach those skills, and she actually returned for the show to make sure that the skills were being done right and teach them a little bit more.
And how long does it take for them to learn?
It's a lifelong journey. I think it's just like anything else. If you're a rugby player, you never stop learning. You just try to hone your skills, and you get better and better at it. If you're a doctor or a surgeon, you upgrade what you learn, and you find the skills you need to learn those skills and keep upgrading what you need. So you got to look at it as a lifelong journey. You start from here, you learn a skill, and you keep going. And it's where you go and how good you get is based on how hard you work, how committed you are, your work ethic, and you know, if you were born to it.
Yeah, that's true. But how long did it like take for them to learn? Because you were saying earlier that I mean, for those for the professionals, it takes them years to like.
It does,
and with the three,
with Glenn, there's a bunch of them, and Kim, they took to it like water. It's amazing how quickly they learned. Because for them to get and learn a routine and be in a show...
Did they just run in and try and jump on the...
Yeah,
it's
hard, because you really think you can do it, but just...
You have to have a lot of core strength,
You do have to have core strength, but there's also technique. And that's the thing, a lot of people have to remember that there's a technique to it. You don't just use your upper body because you'll blow your arms out. You have to use your entire body. Your legs are a big part, your back, and the way you use your entire body to get on, this is silk, so it's just a piece of fabric, but it's a very specific piece of fabric. Also the rigging, what they hang on, You can hang a car. I mean, you could hang a truck. It's 10,000 tons that it can carry.
Wow.
So you could have 3 people on that thing and you'd be safe.
Okay.
Yeah. So it took them a long time. I'm amazed that they actually did it, and I'm very proud of them.
Yeah, I know. I saw it. It was really exciting.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what else do you have in store for Fiji tour?
You know, the next thing is we're going to address climate change.
Climate change.
Yeah, there's
Tell
a
us
big,
about it. What's the
well,
production going to be on?
the thing is, we're writing it. So we start from the bottom up. We write it. The executive producer will be Professor Vilsoni Hereniko. Inglese Ete, who's world famous, is doing the music. I do the lyrics, and I will be directing. Alan Alo, who was my predecessor, is going to be cultural advisor and also helping with advising for the whole thing. So that's your creative team. From there, we start to audition, and then we start to figure out what parts are singing, what parts are dancing. Like past productions, like if you saw Baka, Birth of the Seer.
Yes, I saw that one. That was really nice too.
Huge production. I mean, I think there were 75 people in that show.
The dancing and the costumes. Yeah, who came up with the costumes for that show?
Well, once again, it's a creative team. We start with from the storyline, and then we start to see who can do what. Because if you're dealing with a traditional thing, then it needs to be something that is traditional and not just made up. If it's something that has a little bit more leeway and can be add a little more fusion to it, like aerial work or something like that, I feel it still needs to resonate within the culture and the context of the story, but you can be a little bit more free. It allows for a little bit more freedom. So it depends, but a lot of times we have our costume designers, and some of the dancers actually design also, and the singers.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, they're very multi-talented. That's one of the things that actually...
So most of them came up with the costume for the men's production?
Oh yeah.
Men's dancing production?
Yeah, a lot of the dancers actually designed the costumes.
So did they design the Bollywood one?
Yes.
Can they design one for me? I really love the pants. Because I thought it was so cool. I mean,
yeah, no, sure. They're multi-talented, and that's another thing about Fiji, that there's a lot of talent, a lot of raw talent that's just dying to I just feel like Fiji is so rich. It's so abundant. There's so much there. You know, that's the reason why I'm here. Because even my friends say, "What are you doing in Fiji?" I'm
I mean, there's not much to do. I mean,
no,
from Hawaii.
There's a lot, and I thought to myself, why didn't I come sooner? But it was time. Right before I came, I helped open the Disney resort in Hawaii, and this Disney resort is not Disneyland.
I read about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Aulani, and it actually focuses on culture and the culture here and now. And it was a good precursor for me to come here to Fiji and start working within the cultures, because that's what really interests me. What's happening? So getting back to climate change, we're going to address issues about what's happening with the climate. You know, like Kiribati and other places where they're going to have to do something, because eventually they're going to be underwater.
Yeah,
and it's very serious. People are going to be displaced. We have to comment about it, and we have to make sure that we're responsible and very clear about how people feel about it, what might happen, what might not, into a storyline.
So you have 6 months or 5 months?
5 months. I know, it's like TikTok.
No, but I'm sure you'll come up with a really good production.
Sleepless nights. I mean, we'll email. I'll be at 3 o'clock in the morning going, bro, we're going to work on this. And it's amazing. We'll see each other.
Are you going to dance? Are you going to be part of the...
You know,
when's the last time you danced?
I dance pretty frequently, but you know, I just turned 50 this year.
What?
Yeah,
I'm
totally just turned 50. So I remember I was in New York in the 80s, man. So I'm there. I'm semi-retired.
All right. Well, we've just run out of time, but just wanted to ask you, for those back home who are watching that are wanting to be an artist like yourself or a dancer, what can you advise them?
I say follow your passion. You know, I mean, if my parents never expected me to be a dancer, they wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer, and I followed my dream and I stuck to my guns, and I love my parents, but eventually they realized that I was doing what God meant me for it to do. And you know, I have dancers now that dance for Lady Gaga, they dance for Jennifer Lopez, and they're all over the world, and they're making more money than me. So you could have someone from Fiji become a famous dancer, a famous choreographer, or anything they want to be, a Bollywood actor, if they really want to. You put your heart and mind to it. Remember, it's a job.
Just try for it.
Yeah, it's a job. So the work ethic, you have to show up. You got to be there, be on time, be committed, and follow your passion.
Thank you, Peter, for sharing with us on the lovely production of Man Dancing. And for those of you at home who missed out on the show, I can't believe you missed out on the show, but don't worry, you can get yourself a DVD from the Oceanic Center at the University of the South Pacific. Anyways, coming up next is the latest on Fiji Touch Rugby. Don't go anywhere, see you in a bit. Welcome to the last segment of Coffee Break this evening. Have you heard much about Fiji Touch Rugby? Yes? No? Well, joining me this evening is Georgina Lasanga, the first female president of Fiji Touch Rugby. Good evening, Georgina.
Good evening, Jackie.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Well, tell me, what's the latest on Touch Rugby?
Well, the latest on Touch Rugby at the moment is we're gearing up to our Trans-Tasman Pacific Cup in September this year. That will be held in Nandi. That's basically the look forward to at the moment, and the teams are in training. The final selection of the last teams were done over the weekend. So basically it's just the work towards that Trans-Tasman Pacific Cup, which Fiji will be hosting for the first time here in Nandi.
Wow, that's really exciting.
Yes, it is.
So how did it come about? Did you...
It came about when Australia and New Zealand, they normally host their own Trans-Tasman Cup. And I think they've got bored of visiting each other's countries, so they thought of taking it outside. So they looked to Fiji as an option. And we welcomed the idea, we welcomed the thought, given it's a boost for a very small sport like ours, a sport that's hardly ever recognized. So it's something to pick up, hopefully the sport, not only here in the capital city where we play it often, but also to go out to the smaller islands that love the sport. Because we have people that have moved out, but then there's just no one to host it wherever they are. So this is something to hopefully pick up the sport from where it was to bigger levels. Yeah.
But this must be really exciting for you because this is your first year, right? As president?
This is my first year as president, and it's my second year running.
And then you have this?
We have this, and the more exciting thing is we have it in age groups. So we're looking at about 300 to 400 people coming down from Australia and New Zealand. We've got some more who have confirmed a mix and a men's team. And it's not only for a certain generation, it's for people of all walks of life. From the youngest of the under 15 grade to people who are playing in the over 50 age category. So if people in Fiji think that touch rugby is a sport that is aggressive, it's a sport for all, where it encourages people to come out and play. It's not a violent sport. It's a non-contact sport, and it's sort of a mixture between rugby and rugby league. So even in our under 15 grade this year that we're taking down, our youngest participant is 80 years old.
8 years old?
8 years old. So,
wow.
And it's a girl. She's very determined, and she's made the side in the final selection. So it's something that builds people to playing something that they really may not be good at. If they're not good at rugby, touch rugby is something, because it's just a touch, dump, there's no impact,
contact,
hitting,
tackling, nothing like that.
Nothing like that.
Well, tell me more about the sport. I mean, with the tournament that's coming up, how many, you said the teams have been selected?
Yes, we have certain age categories and also certain gradings. Like there's only the comp where we have the mix, which comprises of 3 men and 3 women on the field. Then we have the men's category, which has 6 men, and then we have the women's category. It's approximately 20 minutes each half, and it's quite an intense running sport as well. You run forward, run backward. So it's for all age groups. We've done it in the business house, we've had good responses, and as of now we haven't been able to make the age group of 45 years and over, but we've asked the assistance of the military, because we know that we have had ex-reps who are now out in the military and in the police force, for them to come in and make a team as Team Fiji to hopefully assist build this sport in all age groups of life. So, yeah, so that's where we are at this stage.
Is the season over for touch?
Yes, normally we have 2 seasons each year. This year we've just had 1 major season, which is the first season. Then we did the selection of players. Next year we'll go back to 2 seasons, but after the Trans-Tasman Cup we only look to having our Confederacy Games, which is our local state of origin. Last year was our first one as well. It was exciting, so this year I know that will be bigger than last year's event.
And tell me about the development. Is there any junior development with touch rugby?
Yes, well, our junior development is basically the age groups that we play in, which is the under 15 and the under 17 grades. We haven't really gone out to the schools yet, given we really don't have anyone, or maybe like any standalone organization which is totally specialized in touch rugby. So in all that, we really have to seek the assistance also from the Ministry of Education and all these other things before we are able to go out. But this year we've done our introductory course for coaches. So hopefully building forward, we will be able to go out to schools as well to introduce the sport and hopefully grow it from grassroots level.
But is it in schools, high schools?
No, it's not in high schools. It's not in schools at the moment.
Not primary.
Yeah, it's just weekend sport that we play, and then it's just the clubs that are formed. And basically, our biggest clubs at the moment are from the Raiwanga area. We have like 3 clubs from the Raiwanga area, and the competition is high because of those 3 clubs. They sort of compete against each other. So they have, in all the Raiwanga teams that have come through, they have all the age groups until from under 15 till the open grades.
Open grades. And what about the West? The West and the North?
The West and the North, they have shown interest, but at the moment there's really no one who has stood up to saying that yes, they're willing to stand and run the association. Basically, most of us are in Suva. We're hoping that someday soon someone will put a hand up in the West and say yes, we're able to take the association from here and hopefully create a Nandi Touch Association, Lotoka Touch. Because previously in the past years we used to have a Western Division Touch Association, and it just died down over the years, and we're just trying to pick it up.
I think that's happening a lot, with a lot other sports as well, not just touch rugby. There's hockey and some others. But what are the plans that you guys have in place?
Well, at the moment we're looking to building touch, or to improving it from here, September. We've proposed with government for a tour next year, and we also want to meet and take up the maximum team to the World Cup in 2015, because that will be in Australia. So this is our build-up. But at the moment, as always, the minor sport have difficulties in finding a lot of things. Basically sponsorship and just securing stuff. Pretty good example is at the moment, we're trying to secure Nandy's Prince Charles Park. We've been trying for over months now. It's been pre-booked by rugby. We're still trying to ask them to recognize a minor sport that's playing at national level, but we still haven't got that. And for us, it's a bit of a depressing and saddening occasion to have to try to build something, and it's very hard with major sport taking over the...
What is it booked for?
Fairbrother at the moment.
This is the Fairbrother.
Yeah, it's booked by the Fairbrother Cup.
Oh,
so
okay.
For us, we haven't finalized our venue
right now with.
Yes, we haven't finalized the venue yet, but we still remain positive and confident that even if we don't get Prince Charles Park, hopefully we'll be able to secure somewhere. But then the cry from the association is like, given that we're trying to build, and this is a national participation level, we hope that the sports ministry could also step in to look into these areas.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, that's the fallback for us at the moment in our preps for the September games. But then we remain confident something's going to turn out well soon.
Sure.
And just build on from there.
There is the Pacific, I think the Pacific mini games that's happening in September in Wallace and Futuna.
Now, touch is not a sport on that calendar, so we will not.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you about that. Okay, with this competition that you have at the in September, right? What do you think when is the next event? I mean, the next national event for you guys?
Okay, the next national event would be the mini games in 2015, which will be in PNG, and the World Cup games, which will be in Australia later that same year. So that would be the drive.
Anything happening in 2014?
2014, there is a spin tournament that may be happening at New South Wales in Australia.
What do you mean by spin tournament?
Spin is sort of just a certain amount of countries that get selected as part of the certain Pacific countries, But the World Cup is everyone from anywhere in the world that's affiliated to the body that can participate.
Okay. And how did you get selected for the Spin Cup? Or you just
Fiji is part of
anyone?
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Fiji is a country part of this.
And so the team that's going now, I mean for September, the competitions, are you looking at like keeping a team like that and just maybe training them, or?
Yes, we're looking to making this September the area where we can actually get at most of the talent, because really most people are fighting for that sport and they need to prove themselves to be able to continuing to any bigger events. And we are taking advantage of this, given that it's our it's played here locally, and we are able to send maximum teams. Come overseas tours, we'll have to cut down the team numbers, because it's not going to be easy sending across 500 people from an association to go and play in certain categories. So we're using this as a platform for build-up, and also the platform to choose the best and to see areas of improvements, areas of fallback, not only on the game, not only on the field, but also off the field. Because for us, most of us, we're going through the administration of it for the first time. We're getting the hang of understanding the demands it requires and the effort it requires. And most of us, we do it for the love of the sport. We don't get paid for it. So it's a building ground for players, not only players, but for administrators as well.
One thing, I don't understand is touch rugby, it seems like a sport that doesn't need much money in it, right? So, how come there's not much, there's not much growth, or clubs, especially in the West?
When you say not much money, what do you mean? We don't pay people, or
no, like with the, say, like for instance, hockey. As a player, you need the a hockey stick, which is going to cost you so much money, and then you got shin pads and mouth guard. Well, with touch rugby, you would need maybe just a mouth guard, running shoes, and that's it, right?
No, in touch we don't really need a mouth guard. It's not a contact sport.
Okay.
Most of us just get a pair of boots. But if you come and watch the age groups and the people that play, most of them are unemployed. Where we have the working groups, so we don't have a problem with it. It's the cost involved is getting the ground, the logistics involved of running to organizing it. When you don't have sponsors, all you're rolling on is the administration fees, and you cannot charge them 300, 400. You don't have perfect areas to run the sport. We're just charging them like 150, and 150, what much can you pay from $150 as registration?
Sure.
So it's just sort of a running cost to keep the sport running. Given the example of hockey, they're very fortunate. They've got a very nice turf.
Yes, that's true.
We're not as fortunate than that. It requires a lot of building and a lot of improvements to it moving forward.
But how do you, spark the interest? Because I had some friends that actually are in touch rugby, and I never really thought about doing the sport, but when they were telling me, we're going to do this, and so just by talking to them, then I, gained interest. But it seems like there's not a lot of people that,
You'd never really know much about touch rugby until you go into the field and play it yourself to gain the interest.
Yeah, that's true.
But yes, it's a very interesting game. It's very challenging. Most people think that there's not much sweat, not much exercise out of it.
Oh no, I
but
saw
once
that.
you do it, it's not really fun. It's something that's going to require a lot of running, a lot of catching, a lot of movement. So to know the interest and to know the good feel of touch rugby, you come in and play touch rugby. Come in and be part of the sport.
But do you still play?
I play occasionally.
Okay.
I play for Business House. I play for my club. I'm still part of the club. But for national level, not really much interested to participate. I do it as a social thing. Yeah. So.
But
yes,
how did the Business House go?
The Business House went well.
What was the response? A lot of businesses put teams together for the games?
Yeah, we had a few banks, a few other financial institutes. The interest was good. We have even received interest from the hotels that used to have to run touch competitions. For us, it's all about trying to administrate it from this end, also with the transtasman going on. It's a bit of a load, given that there's a certain people that's running, that's doing everything. It's very hard to getting people to doing stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we hope to run a one-day event again soon to cater for the interest from the West. But we're not confirming anything as yet, but there's a hope in there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We've just run out of time, but just one thing I wanted to ask you. to share with maybe those watching at home, if they were interested in joining touch rugby, just by listening to the show now, what can you advise them on maybe who to contact?
For touch rugby, if you want to make contact, I think we got the gentleman right here who works with his organization. He's a cameraman, Mr. Aaron Tisowal. He could be a contact, or if you could go to Facebook, we have a Fiji Touch Rugby Facebook account, Fiji Touch. Just put in your interest in that. Any one of the administrators will respond to you. Or my contact, Georgina Lasang, I'm sure if you search it somewhere along the net.
On Facebook?
Through Fasanok as well, you'll be able to get a contact.
Okay. Thank you, Georgina, for joining me this evening. And that's a wrap for the show, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it, because I sure did. So like us on our Facebook page, post your comments or suggestions, and find out more on how you can win great prizes right here on Coffee Break. Good night.